Plymouth fans won't want to hear this, but that felt pretty routine. Hello everybody, it's Ian here once again from OUFC Fan View, and it's time for another review of another Oxford United game. It's the final game of 2024. Oxford were at home to Plymouth Argyle. Gary Rowett got a victory in his first game for Oxford United against Cardiff on Boxing Day. It seemed like an ideal opportunity for him to get victory number 2 as they played another relegation rival in Wayne Rooney's Plymouth, who've been really struggling this season and particularly really struggling on the road. 2024's been a really exciting year for Oxford United. It's been a lot of highs. Can we end it on a high? Well, that's exactly what United did. Arguably their most comfortable victory of the season. And it's a great end to the year. It finished Oxford United 2, Plymouth Argyle 0. We'll do what I usually do on this channel. I'll go over the team news, I'll go over the game, highlighting the key incidents, and then I'll give my final thoughts for both sides at the end of the video. If you do want to jump to the end and just see my final thoughts, that's absolutely fine. Please feel free to do so by using those timestamps down below. But if you do, the very least you can do is hit like on this video, because that does help me out a heck of a lot. And if you do like the content, then consider subscribing. And a huge thank you to the 2 super chats that I received on my last review video. Michael Sneed, you've been following me for a long time. Thank you very much, you bloody legend. And Harold Carlson sent me some Norwegian kroner. Can you believe it? My reach reaches all the way to Norway. Who would have thought it? But thank you to you also. Let's move on to the team news then, starting with Oxford United. And it's pretty simple team news to report, as Gary Rowett, not surprisingly, names an unchanged side from that side that had that win over Cardiff. The only difference is on the bench, and it's a return for Kyle Edwards, who replaces the ill Josh McEachran. That was short and sweet. Let's move on to Plymouth's team news. And Wayne Rooney's Pilgrims started the game bottom of the Championship. Unfortunately, Plymouth fans, that is where you remain. Argyle were handed a big boost with surprise returning players from injury for this game. Morgan Whittaker and Ryan Hardy have both quite surprisingly been declared fit, and along with Connor Hazard in goal and Marty Sorinola, it looks a much stronger Plymouth lineup than some of the fans would have hoped for. The players dropping out of the side are goalkeeper Grimshaw, Finn Gray and Bundu, who was injured in that defeat to Coventry. It's been a miserable season so far for the Green Army, and especially away from home, where they have a wretched away record, just like Oxford really. Quite simply, for both sides, this is a massive game. Let's move on to the game then, and for the first 10 minutes or so it was quite cagey, neither side wanting to make any mistakes, but Oxford started to get into their groove around about the 10 minutes mark and started to dominate possession, and on 14 minutes they got that all-important early goal. As I said, it came from a long spell of possession from Oxford, which resulted in a corner. The initial corner was cleared by Plymouth, but Oxford were able to recycle it out to Goodrum on the right-hand side. It was actually a first-time volleyed, or half-volleyed, effort by Goodrum right the way across goal, and there was Ciaron Brown throwing himself at the ball to get his head on it. A lovely diving header past Hazard and into the back of the net, and Oxford have a crucial lead. 18 minutes on the clock and Oxford looking so confident now. The passing of the players is so much quicker and sharper than we've seen in recent weeks. Brannigan dinking a ball over the top for Rodriguez, who has to stretch every sinew to cushion it into the path of Harris. It's a good low effort from Sparky, but it's well saved by the feet of Hazard. And from that corner, the ball came out to Płacheta, who whipped in a lovely ball to the back post. And Greg Lee should have done better with it, really. He only puts it wide, but it was a good chance for Lee, but he only found the side netting. As the first half went on, you did see Plymouth come back into it a little bit. I would say Oxford were, for the large part, were in control, but Plymouth were starting to ask a few questions, mainly through their left wing back Mumba, who whenever he got on the ball was looking quite dangerous and forced a couple of corners. And on 31 minutes, Plymouth did actually hit the bar. Sam Long probably made his only mistake in the game, lost the ball in a bad area, and Plymouth were able to come forward. It was El Hadj who tried his effort from the edge of the box. It was actually really well blocked by Will Vaux, but it did end up looping up into the air, just like an effort Cardiff had at the weekend. And once again, luckily for Oxford, it hit the bar and went over. But as Plymouth pushed forward, it gave Oxford a chance on the break, and just 2 minutes later, they spurned a golden chance to make it 2-0. The U's got Płacheta motoring forward. It was 2 against 1, but Przemy just took too long on the ball, and he missed that chance to play it through to Harris when Harris would have been clean through, and Plymouth were able to get back and smuggle the danger away. And it was Oxford who fashioned a couple more chances before the break on 36 minutes. Good play by Brannigan, got the ball into Płacheta again on the right hand side. He got a little bit of space, drilled an effort goalwards, but Hazard had to make a smart save. And then from another Goodrum corner, Oxford hit the bar themselves. This time Greg Lee hitting the bar. It was a weird effort because it seemed like Greg Lee had mistimed his jump completely. He was on the way down when the ball hit his head, but it again, like the Plymouth effort, it looped up into the air and just hit the top of the crossbar and went over. And that was it, really. That kind of was the last kind of meaningful attack of the first half. Oxford getting in with a 1-0 lead. It's been a good performance so far from the Yellows, and I think they deserve that half-time lead. Now they got that win on the board against Cardiff, and now they're in the lead here. You can see that confidence returning to the players, and everything about the passing is so much better. The movement of the players is so much better than what we've seen in previous weeks as well. Przemy Płacheta is a constant threat down the right-hand side. And yeah, I'd say Oxford might be a little bit annoyed that they were only 1-0 up. Plymouth have been pretty lacklustre, I must say. But they did start to put a little bit of pressure on Oxford towards the end of the half. And Mumba, when they got him pushed forward, did look like he would be their main outlet and was causing Oxford some problems down their left Oxford right. But thankfully, we saw very little of Morgan Whittaker. And hopefully that will stay the same, because Oxford lead this game at the break 1-0. And Plymouth certainly did start the better of the two sides. The first chance came just a couple of minutes in, and it was just a bouncing ball in midfield that Plymouth won, and all of a sudden Oxford looked really stretched at the back as Plymouth came forward. Some indecision from Plymouth in the final third, though, did allow Oxford to get back, and there was a couple of really good blocks in there from the United defenders. But Plymouth continued to look dangerous and continued to look dangerous when Mumba was on the ball. On 52 minutes, he delivered a superb, excellent cross into the near post. It looked like Hardy was just going to be able to tap it in at that near post, but Ciaron Brown got back to just get something on it and turn it behind for a corner. But the chances kept coming for Plymouth as just 5 minutes later, Przemy Płacheta bringing down JV on the edge of the box. It was a good chance for Randall, and his free kick was decently hit, but went over the bar. And I was just feeling at that point, as we arrived at the hour mark, I was feeling Oxford just being a bit sloppy at the start of the second half, and it was giving Plymouth more and more encouragement. But then just a minute later, the game changed as Oxford made it 2-0. As Plymouth pushed forward, there was more and more of a chance that Oxford were going to get some joy on the break. And after a ball was aimlessly just bouncing around in the middle of the park, Rodriguez got his foot on it, played it through to Płacheta. He had far too much pace for the Plymouth back line, but it looked like he'd overrun the chance as Hazard came out to meet him, and he was able to just sort of turn away from Hazard. It kind of sold Hazard a dummy a little bit as he went to ground, and Płacheta just calmly rolled it into the net. It looked like he'd messed it up, but we should have known better. Płacheta's on fire, 2-2 for him, and that is just what United needed. And thankfully, the game kind of did peter out after that. There weren't too many chances of note, as Oxford just kind of coasted to victory, really. There was a dangerous attack from Plymouth on 67 minutes, where it seemed like they had numerous players in good shooting opportunities, but either, again, just delayed their shot or took too many touches, and Oxford were able to shut the door and get some good blocks in, which is good to see. It's important to see us protect that clean sheet. And yeah, the only thing to really talk about was just the substitutions that Rowett made with 20 minutes to go. We saw Płacheta get his second standing ovation in 2 games. Who would have saw that coming a few weeks ago? As he came off along with Rodriguez, Matty Phillips and El Mazouni came on. And as the game moved into the final 10 minutes, it got more and more scrappy, which just suited Oxford more and more with the more and more cheap free kicks that were given as the game went on. And you just saw Scarlett and Terravest come on for Harris and Goodrum. But there was really nothing to worry about because this game petered out and that was all good for Oxford United, who secured back-to-back home wins for the second time this season and ended 2024 in a really strong way. And that brings me on to my final thoughts, and we're going to start with the visitors in Plymouth Argyle. And look, it's a really, really tough time for you guys at the moment. This away record is absolutely horrible, and you'd have thought if you can't, I know you would have thought if you can't beat Oxford away, who the heck can you beat away? You even got players back in for this game. I don't really think they made much of an impact. I don't think really you made much of an impact in this game. Other than Mumba was the only really player that I thought was quite impressive in this game. But other than that, I thought Oxford were quite comfortable. And really, you won't like me saying this, but I thought that was Oxford's most comfortable win of the season. So I know there's been some really uninspired performances away from home park this season, and that's probably a bit of an understatement. And I know that all the knives are out for Wayne Rooney. But is it his time to go, Plymouth fans? It feels like it is. But do you feel it is his time to go? And if there's anybody that wants him to stay, let me know your reasons as for why you want him to stay. And do you think he still deserves a chance? Because you have got some players missing. I know you've got some players like Obafemi and Sissoko that could come back in and make a big difference. So do you just need to give him more time? Or is that it? It sounded like you're pretty unanimous that you do want him gone. So Plymouth fans, let me know. As I said, this channel's never about taking the piss out of opposition fans. And I've had some good chats with Plymouth fans down the years. And usually you get the better of us in these games, but not today, thankfully for me. But yeah, what needs to happen? Who needs to come in? If you make a managerial change, do you go with Mike Phelan for a bit? Or do you have somebody lined up in your mind that you want to come in? What can you do in the January transfer window to strengthen this side, to give you a bit more backbone when you're in these away games? Because it seemed like you really went down without much of a fight in the game today. And I'm worried about Oxford on the road as well. I feel we can't be too over-reliant on this home form. And I know you guys are in the same boat with being very over-reliant with how you do at home park. But you know, just like what I said to the Cardiff fans, it's weird to say good luck to you because you're in a relegation fight with us for the rest of the season, it looks like. And you will have your chance to get revenge on Oxford in just about 3 weeks' time as we come to home park. So things might be drastically different when that game rolls around. But let me know, as I say, tenuous little good luck there. For the rest of the season, and I'll move on to Oxford United. So yeah, 2 huge games for Gary Rowett to start his tenure as Oxford United manager, and he passed them both with flying colours. It's an even more important victory when you see some of those results that went around today with Hull, Stoke and Cardiff getting some big wins on the board. It definitely felt like we all thought it was a must-win game. And it's really, really glad that once again it's gone in Oxford United's favour. I thought this was a very comfortable win for Oxford United. You just like for the Cardiff game, I felt like whoever got the first goal in this game was going to run on and win it. And Oxford got it. And you just saw that confidence flow through the players. They weren't really overly tested by Plymouth in the second half. And you always felt that they could get some joy on the break. And thankfully we did. Thankfully we had that cushion. And it ended up being a pretty comfortable win. So let's say, first of all, fantastic to get a clean sheet. Long time coming that we've got a clean sheet. So Cumming and that defensive unit deserve a huge pat on the back for that. Hopefully that is the first of many in this second half of the season. There's not too many surprises that Rowett picked the same side. I think everybody would have done that after you got that win against Cardiff. Just go again, lads. And the lads put in another great performance. I mean, again, there's always question marks about Sam Long at right back, but has he ever let us down this season? He's always been extremely solid, and arguably if Kioso does get back in, that is really harsh on Long. As much as people will keep saying he's not a championship player, but show me a bad game that he's had. And it is just weird that when you do make a managerial change, all of a sudden there are some players that have been struggling that all of a sudden look like new men. And that brings me quite nicely onto Przemysław Płacheta, who looks like a new signing that we've made in the last couple of weeks. My goodness, Talk about a player that's now playing with a purpose. Every time he gets the ball, he wants to run down that line, make something happen, get crosses into the box. His end product at times is a little bit questionable, but my goodness, he's having a big impact so far in this Gary Rowett tenure. And he's gone from a player who some fans didn't ever want to see again playing for Oxford to a guy that is almost first name on the team sheet. And I tell you what, I can't wait to see Płacheta play the next game, because he's an exciting player when he gets going and gets running, and he's got that pace, and we're finally seeing that pace, and it's the sort of player that gets the fans off their seats, gets the fans engaged, and makes you feel that you're going to have some attacking punch. And thoroughly deserved his goal. It looked like he'd made a meal of it, but in the end it turned into a very calm, lovely finish, and again 2 standing ovations in 2 games, and thoroughly deserved. Let's hope that carries on into 2025. But also, along with him, Will Vaulks looks very assured now, along with Cameron Brannigan, in that kind of double pivot to holding midfield roles in midfield. And whilst it might not necessarily get the best out of Branners, it is getting the best out of Will Vaulks, and he's looking very solid in there. Quite commanding, seems like he knows his role quite well, and we're actually seeing him pass the ball forward now, which is good to see. And I think a lot of that comes down to the confidence in the Oxford players, the fact that the movement ahead of him is so much better. And I feel there's just a clear game plan under Rowett. Back to basics a little bit, don't need to overplay it when you don't need to, get the ball forward. And don't worry about it if you do need to go direct. But if you're going to go direct, hit that ball into a channel and at least give an Oxford player a chance to try and run onto it. Ciaron Brown, 2 goals in 2. Amazing that Ciaron Brown has done that. Look, it's going to be interesting in the new year when the January window comes around, because we're almost certainly going to bring a centre-back in, you would hope. And so what does that do to the dynamic of Moore and Brown? Does it mean that Brown comes out? Maybe Moore comes out? Who knows? I personally wouldn't want to change it, but also on that flip side, we do need another centre-half coming in. So be interested to see what Oxford do in that regard. But things have been better all over the field, and certainly with set pieces as well. And Goodrum's been on them for a while, and the delivery's been much improved for a while. And I think that's good to see. And you saw his delivery generally was on point today, causing problems. We got a goal from indirectly from a free kick from a second recycled phase, but again, a wonderful ball in from Goodrum nonetheless. And we certainly start to look more dangerous in that regard, because we're going to need goals from set pieces. Those cheap goals are going to be so important as the season rolls on. I mean, look at these things. We still haven't had many lucky goals this season. We haven't had a penalty. We haven't had like a freaky own goal, like a real bad mistake by an opposition defence, which gives us a chance. We just haven't really had many of those efforts, so maybe we're due a few lucky goals in 2025. But with the injuries clearing up, that bench is starting to look more strong as the weeks go on, with the likes of Dembele and Edwards and Sibley coming back to fitness, like Phillips as well. All of a sudden, Oxford do look like they have some options, and that is good too. But we move into that January transfer window now, with that being the final game of the 2025 window, and it'll be interesting to see what business is done by Oxford. I wouldn't expect too much too early, but I will expect that there'll be some outgoings and some ingoings, of course. But one outgoing I want to talk about is Goodwin gets a lot of talk from people in my comments about how you want to see him. And then if you don't see him, people talk about how he's going to be sold. Why are we going to sell him? I'm just going to ask you, he's our player and we've got him on a pretty long-term contract and we spent 400 grand on him. Why are we looking to just sell him at the first opportunity? Wouldn't it make more sense if we can just loan him out to a League One side for 6 months or half a season, so we can get some game time, get some goals, get some regular football? Because he's barely kicked a ball in 2024, let's be fair. So he needs games. And if he goes and gets half a season in League One, gets some confidence, gets some goals, he could be a massive asset to Oxford next season, regardless of what league we're in. Things are also looking more comfortable down the bottom of the table, aren't they, Oxford fans? We move on to 24 points. After seeming like being on 18 points for an absolute age, we move quite quickly on to 24 points after exactly 23 games played. So we are exactly at our halfway point of the season. So if you double that points tally coming the end of the season to give us 48, is that enough? Is that going to be enough to keep us up? It will be bloody close. It will be a good bit, give us a good shout, that'll be sure. So if Oxford can just merely double what we've done in this first half of the season, we might be okay, which is massively different from where we were looking just a couple of games ago. But 2024 has been a wonderful year, Oxford fans, and let's not forget it. I hope that we never will. It's ended on a really good note with those 2 back-to-back wins. I know it's still a little bit of a sour note what did happen to Des Buckingham, and he might still have got wins in this game, but we move forward now under Gary Rowett. He's had a perfect start. We've got 4 away games on the spin now to start 2025, starting with Millwall on New Year's Day. And I think Oxford will go into that game with a lot more heart and confidence than they did a few weeks ago. And it's a Millwall side who are looking different from what we saw maybe from when they came to the Kassam as well. But if Oxford can smuggle another point against the Lions, Rowett back into the Lions' den as an ex-Millwall boss, then I think we'll all be pretty pleased with that. But other than that, it's a good end to the year, Oxford fans. Let me know your comments down below. Let me know your thoughts on this game, on the transfer window, and of course the obligatory essays about Will Goodwin. But thank you very, very much for watching. I do appreciate it. I always have appreciated all the comments and all the support that all you guys have given me. I've had so many regulars that consistently write comments after every single game, and please continue to do so because I really appreciate it. We move on to 2025, everyone. Hopefully it'll be as an exciting of year for Oxford United as 2024 was. Happy New Year, everyone. Come on, you Yellows.